Welcome to Natural Born Talents. Today's aura is the dreamer soul, the lavender. The lavender is another spiritual soul, but it's a very unusual one. It's the one that lives in the world of fantasy, imagination, dreams, paranormal experiences, and so on. The lavender has a very hard time staying emotionally, spiritually, physically in the world we have today. Their mind is extremely active, full of all kinds of images that alter on a drop of a dime. This makes it very difficult for them to focus with other people and subjects that do not interest them. It's like this aura soul is only partially in this world and the rest of it is somewhere else. Physically, they're not very active people. They don't really care for sports, because sometimes even changing into a school uniform example causes them to feel uneasy. This doesn't mean that they're weak. They just don't like the humdrum details of daily life. They much prefer the images they see in their mind, the fantasies they read in books or see on TV. So therefore, things like team sports and stuff have very little meaning for them. But some of the more yoga-like or slow martial arts like Tai Chi, they may find interesting. So people around this aura, especially parents with children with this aura, may get confused. They're so into their mind, the images that they see in their mind's eye, that the rest of the world around them seems to be just superficial. So their interaction with people seems to be very shallow at times. Like they don't seem to really care because they're more in their mind than they are in the reality that the rest of us are in. For example, they may be having a conversation with you, and a word that you say will flick this switch in their mind, and they'll just kind of drift off into space without realizing they dropped out of the conversation. You may actually even confront them, and they'll look at you with this wide-eyed look. What, you talking to me? It's as though they're talking to someone within their mind and not with the people around them, which actually may be true. This aura is very sensitive. This aura, more likely than any other, will see ghosts, alternate realities. Their minds have no limits, so they think anything's possible. They understand magic better than they understand mathematics, for example. They go through life as though nothing seems to really matter in the physical world. They may like money, but they don't go chasing after it. They may have one or two friends, but they don't really have deep relationships. The reason is because they like to be alone to think about the different realities, the different scenarios, the different fantasies they see in their mind's eye. When they do this is actually very healthy for them because they're actually regenerating themselves. When they have the time and the space to fantasize or dream, they can become much easier to deal with on a social level. If they don't have this time and they're constantly being told what to do or to be active, they can become agitated and react accordingly. Because they're holistic thinkers, time, space, and order can get very confusing. This is somewhat like the Tinkerer soul, the red tan aura, but theirs is more of a logical matrix way of thinking. This aura is all about space, imagination, creativity. This is one of the most creative auras of all the auras, but they don't show it because it just sits in their mind and that's enough. They don't really seem to want to produce anything. They don't have the drive of the ego, say like the aura does. They're very laissez-faire, very laid back, and nonchalant. They just want the time alone to think. Because of this, they sometimes don't realize what their purpose in the world is. They're not physically active. They're not logical, linear thinkers. They do have emotions, but they're not out of control, say like the blue maybe. They're actually very intuitive. This aura tends to be very psychic at the energy sensitive level. They can pick up very subtle nuances if they're not spacing out in their mind somewhere and they're feeling the surroundings around them. They become quite psychic that way. But that takes a lot of training. This aura is also very playful when the environment is not too clinical, when it's free. Like the magenta, this aura does not like to be held against their will. They like their freedom. But they're not aggressive about it like the magenta might be. They'll just look at you and say, yeah, I guess so, and then go off and do their own thing, leaving everybody wondering what that answer just was. This aura needs to realize, because their mind is so fertile, that they need to express it in one of many ways. Artistically, writtenly. I am sure Carol Lewis was one of this auras, as well as J.R. Tolkien and many of the other famous writers, Lewis Carroll from the Narnia series and so on. All these had to be lavenders. The way that they write this nonsensical, random fantasy world and make it sound so real, and who knows, perhaps another reality they are, is all the hallmark of a lavender. So this aura does require some sort of discipline. However, it must be internal. They must figure it out themselves. If you try to put pressure on a lavender to do something, they'll just shut down and escape in their mind, especially as children. As children, lavenders need lots of mental space. Giving them books, especially fantasy books to read, is ideal. This will allow their mind to explore other realities and then later create something new. Other areas they do well is if they become teachers, which a lot of lavenders do, they need to develop their intuitive skill. Their intuitive skill is unlike anyone else's, but it takes practice for them to use it in the real world. They can pick up subtle nuances, say from a child or a student, and react accordingly. This makes them great play therapists, counselors, especially with those who have seen some of the things that they have seen in the paranormal world. The lavender has such an unusual mind. They can see patterns through space, the details, as well as the whole at the same time. A very complex skill, but it's all internal, so very few people understand it or notice it. Now, lavenders do like to be alone most of the time. However, I noticed that if they're around other people who understand their way of thinking and are sort of laid back like they are, they can make very comfortable relationships. Their partner will have to understand, however, their need of space. Once they're recharged, they become much more able to communicate. Without this understanding, a relationship will not get very deep and may end quickly. If they are forced into a traditional role, such as a mother if they're female, or a father if they're male, this can cause a lot of confusion because they need the time and space to create their stories, their artwork, or their pursuit of esoteric subjects. Therefore, if they do become a parent or a teacher, it is best that they focus all of their energies at a short time to give the needs to the children that they are working with. Then they can go home, space out, recharge, come up with some creative thing for the next day, and so on. A 9-to-5 job for this aura is very impractical. So the best lifestyle for the lavender is something where they can get paid enough to make a decent living, where they can provide a minimal amount of time to others in the performing arts, for example. They love acting, working with children as a play therapist, ghost hunting, writing about fantasy, ghost stories, or other things that they're interested in. They could never work as, say, a manager or any other job that requires a high level of responsibility. This aura is not selfish in its needs. In fact, most of the vulgar needs of humanity, they don't really care much about. Greed, lust, fame, and all these other narcissistic pursuits really don't have a lot of meaning for them. That doesn't mean they can't get intense or passionate with their partner or loved one. It just means that their partner has to be on the same key they are, which is very difficult. If that is achieved, however, love-making can be a lot of fun and very spiritual for them. The hardest thing for this aura to learn is to stay in this world, the harsh physical reality as it is now. Therefore, it is best for this aura to try to shift from the spacey, cloudy world of fantasy into the harsh reality of this world on their own, to discipline themselves that way. This will make it much easier for this aura to function in the world as it is now. As usual, there's much more on this aura, so if you have any questions, please leave it in the comments section below. Thank you again for listening. If you'd like to support this channel, the details are listed below. Thanks again. Hope to see you at the next video.